Dr. Amanda Brooks stood at the back of the United Nations Assembly Hall, her fingers unconsciously tracing the Force Recon tattoo hidden beneath her sleeve. After 15 years of trading her combat boots for lab coats, old habits died hard. The massive holographic display of Earth's preserved wilderness zones rotated slowly above the assembly, casting emerald shadows across the faces of humanity's representatives and their alien visitors. High Commander Zextal's translucent appendages rippled with what Amanda had learned was their species' expression of disdain. The Galactic Concordat representative's exo-armor hummed as he moved closer to the display, its crystalline surface reflecting the greens and blues of Earth's last wild places. Fascinating. Zextal's translator chittered. Your species maintains these wastelands voluntarily. Amanda's jaw clenched. She'd spent the last 6 months studying the Concordat's biology and culture, but their arrogance still caught her off guard. The UN Secretary-General started to speak, but Zextal continued. On civilized worlds, such inefficient use of space would be considered a sign of technological regression. These rainforests particularly. His appendages gestured dismissively at the Amazon basin's holographic representation. Hostile environments breeding disease, predators, and chaos. Any sophisticated species would have converted such areas into productive urban centers generations ago. From her position, Amanda could see the Brazilian ambassador's knuckles whitening around his armrest. She understood the rage. The Concordat's first contact had brought promises of technological exchange and galactic cooperation. Nobody expected them to start by insulting Earth's environmental preservation efforts. High Commander. Amanda found herself stepping forward, her scientific credentials granting her the right to speak. These preserved zones are essential to Earth's ecological balance and… Dr. Brooks. Zextal's translator somehow managed to convey condescension in its artificial tone. Your species' primitive attachment to natural environments is precisely why the Concordat has classified Earth as a Category 3 developing world. These zones are not preservation, they are stagnation. The chamber erupted in murmurs as Amanda studied the alien delegation's security detail. Their powered armor was impressive, probably capable of lifting several tons, equipped with energy shielding and what appeared to be integrated weapon systems. But she noticed how they moved, all mechanical precision and programmed responses. No adaptation, no improvisation. Her training kicked in automatically. The warriors were too dependent on their technology, their stance betraying no awareness of their surroundings. They'd never had to survive without their precious suits, never had to read terrain, track prey, or move silently through hostile territory. She learned those skills the hard way in places just like the ones they mockingly displayed above. Perhaps, Amanda replied carefully. The Concordat's definition of advancement needs updating. Zextal's appendages stiffened, a sign of offense, she knew. Our civilization has transformed 12,000 worlds from primitive wilderness into productive members of the galactic community. Your forests are relics of a past best forgotten. As the alien delegation filed out, Amanda noticed something else about their warriors. They moved like creatures who had never known fear, had never been hunted. Her old surgeon's voice echoed in her memory. Predators who've never been prey make the deadliest mistakes. That night, reviewing the meeting recordings in her lab, Amanda received an urgent message. Concordat mining ships had breached the Amazon's protected airspace. Illegal quantum drilling operations had already destroyed several thousand acres of rainforest. As she stared at the satellite footage of the destruction, her hand moved to her comm unit. She still had the number for her old commanding officer at Force Recon. The Concordat clearly needed a lesson in respect, and she knew exactly who could teach it. Time to show them why Earth keeps its wild places wild, she murmured, punching in the familiar code. The jungle would soon remind everyone why it had earned the name Green Hell. The emergency UN session erupted into chaos as Amanda projected the devastation footage onto the main display. Where pristine rainforest had stood just days ago, massive quantum drilling rigs now carved luminescent scars into the earth. The machine's energy signatures pulsed like angry wounds against the thermal imaging. 3,000 acres destroyed in 72 hours. Amanda's voice cut through the outcry. The Concordat mining ships are using some form of quantum tunneling to extract rare earth elements. They're not just clearing the forest. They're destabilizing the entire ecosystem. The Brazilian president slammed his fist on the podium. This is an act of war. High Commander Zextal's holographic form flickered to life in the chamber center, his appendages radiating what Amanda had learned to recognize as smug amusement. An overreaction. We're simply helping to modernize your primitive territories. The Concordat has determined these resources are essential to galactic infrastructure. Amanda stepped forward, her old combat instincts reading the alien's body language. You're in direct violation of 17 international treaties and the preliminary First Contact Accords. Treaties concerning wasteland zones are hardly binding to the Concordat, Zextal's translator chittered. However, we are amenable to settling this dispute through traditional means. The chamber fell silent. Amanda's hand tightened around her datapad, recognizing the predatory shift in the alien's stance. Traditional means, the Secretary General asked cautiously. A military challenge. Zextal's appendages rippled with anticipation. The Concordat will deploy 1 regiment of our stellar peacekeepers to secure these mining operations. If Earth's forces can successfully defend these precious wilderness zones, we will withdraw and respect your sovereignty. Holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showcasing the stellar peacekeepers in action. Amanda watched as powered armor troops decimated opposition on a dozen worlds, their energy weapons cutting through defensive lines like paper. The message was clear. Resistance was futile. You expect us to commit to open warfare. The U.S. Secretary of Defense leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Oh no, Zextal's translator managed a chuckle. This is merely a military exercise. Our peacekeepers have never lost a ground engagement in 3 centuries. Once your forces experience true tactical superiority, you'll understand the futility of maintaining these wild zones. Think of it as an educational opportunity. Amanda's mind raced, analyzing the combat footage. The peacekeepers were formidable in urban environments, their tactics refined for civilized warfare. But she noticed something crucial. They'd never fought in anything resembling Earth's jungles. Their movements were too rigid, their formations too dependent on open sight lines. We accept, Amanda declared, causing several heads to snap toward her. Dr. Brooks, the Secretary General warned, you don't have the authority. Actually, as Earth's chief xenobiological defense advisor, I do. She stepped closer to Zextal's hologram. Under Emergency Protocol 17, I'm authorized to accept military challenges during first contact scenarios. However, we choose the defending force. Zextal's appendages twitched, a sign of curiosity. Your regular military would be acceptable cannon fodder. Not regular military. Amanda's lips curved slightly. Special forces only. Specifically, our jungle warfare specialists. The alien commander's dismissive gesture was almost human-like. Primitive specialists for primitive terrain. Amusing. Very well, you have 48 hours to deploy your forces before our operation begins. Try to make this entertaining, at least. As the hologram faded, the chamber exploded with arguments. Amanda was already walking out, her comm unit connecting to a secure line. Ghost, it's Brooks. Remember that favor you owe me from Venezuela? She paused, listening to the gruff voice on the other end. How'd you like to hunt some aliens? Master Sergeant Jake Ghost Cooper's laugh was predatory. About damn time, Doc. I was getting bored training these kids. Give me 6 hours to call in some old friends. You've got 12. And Jake, they've never fought in anything like our jungle. Good. Ghost's voice hardened. Time to teach these high-tech bastards why Earth kept its teeth sharp. See you at the staging point, Doc. Amanda ended the call, a grim smile playing across her face. The Concordat was about to learn that Earth's wilderness wasn't just preserved. It was weaponized. Forward operating bay's green echo materialized in the Amazon rainforest like a ghost at midnight. No landing pads, no permanent structures, just a series of camouflaged command posts that seemed to grow from the jungle itself. Amanda watched from beneath a canopy of leaves as familiar faces emerged from the darkness, moving with the fluid grace of predators. Master Sergeant Jake Ghost Cooper hadn't changed much in 5 years. Still built like a granite cliff, his weathered face painted in irregular patterns that made him nearly invisible in the dappled moonlight. He'd gathered quite the reunion, she noted. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghost's voice carried just far enough for the assembled operators. Welcome to the most important hunting trip of your careers. Around the holographic tactical display stood 30 of Earth's deadliest jungle warfare specialists. Brazilian GRUMEC operators, their faces bearing the traditional jaguar spot camouflage patterns. British SAS jungle experts fresh from Myanmar, their eyes constantly scanning the tree line out of habit. U.S. Navy SEALs who'd trained in these very forests, looking eager to put their skills to use. Dr. Brooks, Ghost nodded. Tell them what we're hunting. Amanda stepped forward, activating a detailed hologram of Concordat armor and weaponry. Their stellar peacekeepers rely on quantum-locked battle suits, energy shielding, integrated weapon systems, and environmental seals. They consider themselves invincible. A Brazilian GRUMEC captain, Silva, spat on the ground. Everybody's invincible until they meet the jungle. Exactly, Amanda smiled, zooming in on specific weak points. Their suits have never been tested against Earth's environment. The humidity alone interferes with their sensor arrays. More importantly, they've never fought opponents who understand terrain warfare. Ghost took over, his finger tracing paths through the topographical display. We're going old school with some new tricks. 4-person teams, traditional hunt and trap tactics. Silva's indigenous scouts have already mapped their likely approach vectors. From the shadows, 3 indigenous warriors emerge, their movements so silent even the Special Forces operators hadn't noticed them. The eldest, Manuel, spoke softly but with authority. The forest speaks of their presence. He gestured to disturbed patterns in the canopy. Their machines hurt the land. But the jungle, his weathered face creased in a predatory smile. The jungle remembers how to fight invaders. The next hour was a masterclass in asymmetric warfare. Ghost and the indigenous scouts outlined killing zones, false trails, and natural ambush points. Amanda provided critical intelligence on Concordat tactical doctrine and equipment vulnerabilities. They'll expect us to defend static positions, Ghost explained, highlighting key areas. Instead, we're going to turn this entire sector into one massive trap. Every tree, every stream, every patch of mud becomes a weapon. The operators split into specialized roles. GRUMEC teams began preparing traditional pit traps, modernized with smart mesh netting that would disable energy shields on contact. SAS experts rigged natural choke points with sensors that could distinguish between wildlife and powered armor. SEALs worked with the indigenous scouts to establish hidden resupply caches throughout the operational zone. Remember, Amanda added, displaying thermal imaging of Concordat troops in action. They've never lost a ground engagement because they've never fought anyone who could truly challenge them. Their arrogance is our greatest advantage. Ghost nodded, his face serious. We're not just defending territory. We're teaching them why Earth's wilderness deserves respect. Why we keep these places wild. Each of you was chosen because you understand that the jungle isn't our enemy, it's our greatest ally. A distant rumble drew everyone's attention skyward. Through gaps in the canopy, they glimpsed Concordat ships entering the atmosphere, their hulls gleaming with artificial perfection. They're early, Amanda noted, checking her data. Ghost's smile was barely visible beneath his camouflage. Good. Teams, move to your initial positions. Remember, no direct engagements. We're ghosts in these trees. Let the jungle do what it does best. As the operators melted into the darkness, Amanda caught Ghost's arm. "Jake, they've got us outnumbered 20-1. Doc." He checked his customized rifle, designed specifically for jungle warfare. "Out here, numbers don't mean shit. The forest just got 30 new predators, and those shiny bastards are about to become prey." Above them, the canopy seemed to close ranks, hiding Earth's defenders in its ancient shadows. The hunt was about to begin. The Concordat's first assault began at dawn, precisely when Ghost predicted it would. Stellar peacekeepers descended from their dropships in perfect formation, their quantum-locked armor gleaming like mercury in the early morning light. Squad leader Vex 17 led the vanguard, his sensors sweeping for hostile forces. He found nothing. Primitive tactical response. He transmitted to his command. No defensive positions detected. No enemy signatures. Area appears abandoned. From her hidden observation post, Amanda watched through a thermal scope as the alien forces moved deeper into the jungle. Their formation was flawless for urban combat. In the forest, it made them predictable. "Ghost," she whispered into her subvocal comm. "They're following the path exactly as planned." "Copy that, Doc. Silva's team is in position. Let's teach them their first lesson." The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Vex 17's squad approached a narrow ravine, their heavy armor forcing them to move in single file. None of them noticed the slight depression in the mud ahead, or how the morning mist clung differently to certain patches of ground. The first peacekeeper stepped forward. The ground held. The second followed, still solid. When the third trooper's weight settled, the entire ravine came alive. Specially treated vines, nearly invisible to sensors, snapped up from the mud. The smart mesh netting, designed by Amanda based on her study of their shield technology, made direct contact with the aliens' armor. Electromagnetic pulses, calibrated to the exact frequency of their shields, cascaded through their formation. Contact. Contact. Shields failing. Vex 17's transmission cut off as his squad plunged into the pre-prepared quicksand pit beneath them. Their heavy armor, now their greatest weakness, dragged them down with inexorable force. Before they could recover, the trees erupted with precise rifle fire. No energy weapons, just specialized ammunition that Ghost's teams had spent hours manufacturing. The rounds weren't designed to penetrate their armor. Instead, they contained a compound derived from local plants that Amanda had discovered played havoc with their sensor systems. Multiple hostile signatures, an alien commander shouted, requesting immediate. The rest of his transmission dissolved into static as the compound worked its way into their communications array. 3 peacekeepers, blinded by failing sensors, stumbled directly into a patch of giant Amazon fire ants that Silva's team had carefully relocated the night before. Ghost's voice crackled over the secure channel. Phase 1 complete. All teams, fade and reset. By the time Concordat reinforcements arrived, they found only empty jungle and their elite troops half buried in mud. Their million-credit armor systems reduced to useless metal by simple organic compounds and calculated physics. Hours later, in a Concordat command ship high above the Amazon, High Commander Zextel reviewed the footage with growing rage. "Impossible," he hissed. "These primitives, they didn't even attempt to hold ground. No fortifications, no heavy weapons." "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "Second Squadron is requesting permission to deploy aerial reconnaissance." "Granted. Find these cowards and—" The tactical display suddenly blazed with dozens of heat signatures. Sensor drones launch, only to become confused by the thermal chaos of the rainforest canopy. Every living tree, every rotting log, every pocket of decomposing vegetation generated heat patterns that matched human profiles. Deep in the jungle, Amanda watched the drone's erratic movements through her binoculars. "They're starting to panic," she reported. "Their entire tactical doctrine is breaking down." Ghost materialized beside her, his camouflage making him nearly invisible even at arm's length. "Good. Manuel's people have finished preparing the night trails. Silva's team is herding them right where we want them." Casualties. None on our side. They never got off a single clean shot. Ghost's teeth gleamed white against his painted face. Those fancy targeting systems can't handle actual jungle warfare. They're fighting ghosts. Above them, Concordat dropships frantically searched the canopy with powerful spotlights. The beams caught nothing but shadows and swaying leaves. The jungle had already swallowed Earth's defenders, leaving no trace of their passage. Amanda checked her watch. Night's coming soon. Yeah. Ghost chambered a fresh round, the sound barely audible above the forest's natural chorus. That's when we show them what real predators can do in the dark. The jungle seemed to whisper in agreement, its ancient shadows deepening with deadly promise. The hunt was far from over. The Amazon's wet season arrived like divine intervention. Dark clouds rolled in from the east, bringing with them the kind of rain that could drown mountains. For the Concordat forces, it was their first taste of true terrestrial hell. "Sir, our energy weapons are malfunctioning." A peacekeeper lieutenant's panicked report crackled through the command channel. "The atmospheric moisture is causing power fluctuations and—" The transmission ended in a burst of static and a single distant crack of rifle fire. In their hidden command post, Amanda studied the tactical display as blue dots representing Concordat forces winked out one by one. They never considered what humidity would do to their precious energy weapons, she noted, passing a canteen to Ghost. "Best part." Ghost grinned, wiping rain from his face. "Our projectile weapons work just fine." The storm intensified, turning the forest floor into a quagmire. Concordat troops, their armor weighing nearly a ton, began sinking into the mud with every step. Meanwhile, Earth's special forces moved like water through the downpour, their movements indistinguishable from the forest's natural flow. Silva's voice whispered through the comm. "Ghost, you need to see this. Northern Sector, Grid 7. Through their tactical feeds, they watched as a Concordat patrol encountered one of Manuel's latest innovations. The indigenous tracker had spent hours weaving local vines and arranging fallen trees to create natural channels. Now, as the rain intensified, these channels turned into raging torrents. 3, 2, 1. Silva counted down. The flood hit the alien patrol like a liquid avalanche. Their heavy armor, designed to shrug off energy weapons, dragged them under. Emergency thrusters sparked and died in the deluge. "Status?" Amanda asked. "All targets neutralized," Silva reported. "Local tribe is calling this spot the place where stars drown." Poetic, no. Ghost's reply was interrupted by a priority alert. A new Concordat force was deploying. Massive walker units designed for heavy assault. "They're getting desperate," Amanda observed. "Those walkers are designed for urban warfare." "Perfect." Ghost keyed his comm. "All units, execute Operation Thunderbolt." Across the combat zone, Special Forces teams triggered their prepared positions. The rain had done half their work for them, saturating the ground and filling hidden sinkholes. As the walkers moved forward, their weight did the rest. The first walker crashed through the softened earth, toppling like a fallen god. The second tried to compensate, only to tangle in camouflaged cables that Silva's team had anchored to the largest trees. The third walker fired blindly into the rain, its energy cannons creating nothing but steam. "Sir," the Peacekeeper commander's transmission cut through the chaos. "We're detecting movement in all sectors. Multiple hostile signatures." "Those aren't hostiles," Amanda smiled, watching the thermal feed. "That's just the local wildlife." The storm had driven the Amazon's creatures into motion. To the Concordat sensors, every jaguar, caiman, and wild pig appeared as a potential threat. Their targeting systems, already struggling with the rain, went into complete overload. From his hidden position, Manuel orchestrated the final touch. His people had spent generations learning to mimic animal calls. Now those calls echoed through the jungle, perfectly timed to the lightning strikes. The psychological effect on the Concordat troops was devastating. "They're breaking formation," Ghost reported with satisfaction. falling back to their dropships. Amanda's analysis confirmed it. The Concordat forces were retreating, their perfect military doctrine shattered by rain, mud, and the coordinated efforts of humans who understood their environment. "Think they've learned their lesson?" she asked. A massive lightning bolt illuminated the jungle, revealing the wreckage of Concordat technology scattered through the trees. Ghost's team had already begun moving to collect valuable intelligence from the abandoned equipment. "They're learning," Ghost replied, checking the chamber of his mud-covered, but still perfectly functional rifle. "But I think they need one more lesson, something to really drive the point home." Through the rain, they could hear the distinctive sound of Concordat dropships attempting emergency takeoffs. Many weren't making it, their advanced engines clogged with mud and organic debris. "The storm's not letting up," Amanda noted, watching the tactical display as more alien units retreated in disarray. Ghost's smile was visible even through the rain and face paint. "Good, because neither are we. All units prepare for night operations. Let's show them why humans learn to fear the dark before we learn to master it." The jungle rumbled with thunder, nature itself seeming to endorse the coming hunt. The Concordats' response to humiliation was predictable. They deployed their legendary Void Walkers. Drop pods pierced the storm clouds at midnight, their sonic booms echoing across the Amazon like artillery fire. Inside each pod, warriors who had conquered 1,000 worlds prepared for what they assumed would be a quick and brutal victory. Commander Thresh9, leader of the Void Walkers, addressed his elite troops with absolute confidence. "These primitives have been fortunate. That ends now. Show them why we are the most feared unit in the galaxy." From her observation post, Amanda watched the pods land through her next-gen scope. "Ghost, we've got 3 full companies of their best. Advanced stealth systems, adaptive armor, and..." She paused, checking her readings. "Something new. Their suits are generating some kind of biodampening field." Ghost's voice was calm in her earpiece. "Won't help them." "Silva." In position, the Brazilian operator responded. "Manuel's people say the forest is angry tonight. The animals are moving wrong." "Perfect." Ghost switched to the general channel. "All units, execute Operation Phantasm. Welcome them properly." The Void Walkers moved with lethal grace, their armor adapting to match the surrounding vegetation. They were invisible to standard optics, nearly silent, and absolutely deadly. They were also walking into humanity's oldest hunting ground. The first squad disappeared without a sound. One moment they were advancing through the undergrowth. The next, nothing. Their emergency beacons activated 800 feet down, in an ancient cave system that Manuel's people had used for centuries to hunt apex predators. "Impossible," Thresh9 barked. "Our sensors show clear ground." "That's because they don't understand the ground," Amanda whispered to Ghost as they watched. "The rainforest floor is layers upon layers of organic matter. What looks solid?" The second squad found out exactly what she meant. Their heavy armor, designed for void combat, broke through the seemingly solid ground into a maze of root systems and hollow spaces. Their attempts to jet boost free only made it worse, creating a chain reaction that pulled them deeper into the earth. "All units, maintain elevation," Thresh9 ordered. His remaining forces activated their jump jets, hovering above the treacherous ground. Ghost keyed his comm. Now, across the combat zone, Special Forces teams triggered their masterstroke. Specialized rounds, designed by Amanda based on local plant toxins, burst in the canopy. The biological payload wasn't lethal, but it had an incredible effect on the local wildlife. Thousands of Amazon fruit bats, their echolocation driven into a frenzy by the compound, swarmed through the trees. The Void Walkers' hovering position put them right in the bats' flight path. Their biodampening fields, designed to mask their presence, actually attracted the disoriented creatures. "What is this primitive chaos?" Thresh9 roared as his forces were engulfed in living darkness. The bats' erratic movements confused their targeting systems, while their collective body heat masked human signatures completely. Under cover of the swarm, Ghost's team struck. They had trained for this, learning to move and fight in concert with the forest's natural chaos. Each shot was precise, targeting weak points in the aliens' adaptive armor that only appeared when they moved to swat away the bats. "Sir, we've lost contact with 3rd Platoon." A Voidwalker lieutenant's panic was clear even through their advanced comm systems. "2nd Platoon is trapped underground and—" His transmission cut off as Silva's team triggered the final trap. The storm had filled their prepared reservoir to capacity. Now that water was released in a controlled flood, turning the forest floor into a flowing death trap that caught the hovering aliens completely off guard. In the Concordat command ship, High Commander Zextal watched in disbelief as the finest warriors in the galaxy were systematically dismantled by what he had dismissed as primitive tactics. "Impossible," he whispered. "The Voidwalkers have never—" "Sir," his aide interrupted, "Commander Threshnine is requesting immediate extraction. They've lost 60% of their force and still haven't confirmed a single enemy casualty." Amanda's voice carried a hint of satisfaction as she reported to Ghost. "They're pulling back. The Voidwalkers are retreating." Ghost checked his ammunition, already preparing for the next phase. "Good, because now we've got their full attention. Time to show them what happens when you underestimate both humanity and nature." The jungle seemed to pulse with anticipation, ready to reveal even deadlier secrets to those who dared dismiss its power. Sub-Commander Krell never imagined his distinguished career would end in mud. His elite reconnaissance squad lay scattered through the rainforest, their advanced armor systems failing one by one. The storm had separated them from their support units, and now the jungle itself seemed to be hunting them. "Status report," he rasped into his comm, receiving only static in response. A sound made him freeze, something moving through the canopy above. His helmet's targeting system tried to lock on but failed, confused by the countless heat signatures of the living forest. Then he saw it, a single drop of water falling differently than the rain. "Contact," he shouted, firing his energy rifle upward. The beam dissipated harmlessly in the humid air. Ghost's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. That was a mistake. The attack came from 6 different directions. Krell's squad fired blindly, while shadows moved between the trees with impossible precision. These weren't the clumsy, technology-dependent soldiers the Concordat was used to fighting. These were hunters, predators who had made the jungle their home. "Hold position." Krell ordered his remaining troops. "Form defensive." A massive tree trunk, expertly weakened over the previous day by Silva's team, chose that moment to fall. It didn't hit any of the aliens directly. It didn't need to. The impact sent vibrations through the ground, triggering a cascade of smaller collapses that separated the squad even further. Fascinating adaptation of natural terrain features. Amanda's voice carried clearly through the chaos. "Want to see more?" Pride made Krell trigger his jump jets, trying to gain elevation. The moisture-heavy air turned his exhaust into a perfect target indicator. A single shot, not energy weapons, but some kind of primitive projectile, clipped his thrust control. He tumbled back to Earth, landing hard in a shallow stream. Then something extraordinary happened. Instead of finishing him off, the humans emerged from cover. Krell watched in disbelief as they moved through the jungle like they were part of it. Each step was perfect, each movement calculated to blend with the forest's natural flow. Leading them was a graying human male whose camouflaged face bore the scars of countless battles. "I'm Master Sergeant Cooper." Ghost introduced himself, rifle held casually but ready. "This is Dr. Brooks. We need to have a conversation about respect." "You could have killed us," Krell realized, his translator struggling with the concept. "Could have," Ghost agreed. "Chose not to. Watch and learn instead." Over the next hour, as they waited for the storm to pass, Kral witnessed something that would change the Concordat's understanding of warfare forever. The humans treated his injured troops with natural medicines derived from local plants. He watched them predict weather patterns by reading subtle changes in animal behavior. They moved through terrain his sensors marked as impassable, finding paths that had existed for millennia. "The jungle isn't wilderness," Amanda explained, helping one of his soldiers remove mud from their armor's joints. "It's the most sophisticated battlefield ever evolved. Every plant, every animal, every patch of ground is part of a system more complex than any technology we've created." A distant roar made Kral's sensors flash warnings. What was that? Jaguar. Manuel emerged silently from the undergrowth, about 2 kilometers east, hunting a tapir based on the direction. The indigenous tracker smiled. "The forest speaks to those who know how to listen." As if to punctuate his words, the humans predicted a flash flood 10 minutes before it happened, moving the entire group to higher ground. They did it not through technology, but by reading natural signs Kral's advanced systems couldn't even detect. "Your civilization sees this as primitive," Ghost gestured to the living maze around them. "We see it as the ultimate training ground. Every special forces operator here had to learn what your people forgot. Nature isn't an obstacle to overcome. It's an ally to understand." Kral watched as a team of HFYSci-Fi operators materialized from the foliage, carrying salvaged Concordat equipment. Their movements were completely silent, perfectly adapted to their environment. In that moment, he understood why the Voidwalkers had failed. "We didn't just preserve these places," Amanda added softly. "We learned from them. Every tactic we've used against you was taught to us by the jungle itself." The rain began to ease, and with it, Kral felt his pride in Concordat's superiority washing away. They hadn't been fighting primitives. They'd been fighting the most sophisticated guerrilla force in the galaxy, trained by 4 billion years of evolution itself. The jungle had spoken. And finally, the Concordat was ready to listen. The morning sun pierced through the Amazon canopy, illuminating an unprecedented scene. High Commander Zextal, his translucent appendages rigid with contained emotion, stood in the mud of the rainforest floor. Around him, Earth's special forces emerged from the shadows like jungle spirits, their camouflaged faces revealing nothing. "Your terms." Zextal's translator struggled to maintain its neutral tone. Ghost stepped forward, still wearing his battle-stained gear. "Simple. Every inch of Earth's preserved wilderness remains untouched. The Concordat acknowledges our sovereign right to maintain these spaces," and he smiled slightly. "You're going to help us protect them." Amanda produced a datapad showing the devastating losses. 3 elite companies decimated, millions in destroyed equipment, and not a single confirmed kill against Earth's forces. The numbers spoke louder than any threat could. Sub-Commander Krell's report was enlightening, Zextal admitted. "He speaks of warfare unlike anything in our records, of humans who move like shadows and strike like natural disasters. We didn't just win because of tactics," Amanda explained, gesturing to Manuel and his indigenous warriors who seemed to materialize from the forest itself. "We won because we never forgot what your people did. That nature isn't an obstacle to overcome, but a teacher to respect." Silva's team appeared with their Brazilian HFYSci-Fi operators, their jaguar spot camouflage making them nearly invisible even in broad daylight. They carried salvaged pieces of Concordat technology, now modified with Earth materials to work in harmony with the jungle rather than against it. "Your civilization spent millennia trying to conquer nature," Ghost continued. "We spent that time learning from it. Every Special Forces operator here can read the jungle like you read your tactical displays. The difference is, our skills work even when technology fails." Zextal's appendages moved in what Amanda now recognized as deep thought. "And your proposal?" "Earth becomes the Concordat's premier training ground for special operations," Amanda stepped forward. "These preserved spaces become living classrooms where your warriors can learn what we know. Not to destroy nature, but to understand it." The demonstration that followed left even the hardened alien commander speechless. Ghost's multinational team showed how they used natural formations for silent movement, local plants for medicine and camouflage, and wildlife patterns for navigation. Manuel's people demonstrated tracking techniques that had evolved over thousands of years, now seamlessly integrated with modern tactical doctrine. "This is why we keep these places wild," Ghost explained, watching Zextal's reaction. "They're not wastelands. They're the most sophisticated training facilities in the galaxy. Your Voidwalkers lost because they fought against the jungle. We won because we fought with it." The agreement was signed there, in the heart of what the Concordat had dismissed as primitive wilderness. Earth's preserved zones would become legendary throughout the galaxy, drawing elite warriors who sought to learn the ancient arts of adaptation and survival. 1 year later, Amanda stood at the edge of a training zone, watching Concordat special forces learning alongside human operators. The aliens moved differently now. Gone was the rigid reliance on technology, replaced by a growing understanding of natural warfare. "They're learning fast." Ghost appeared beside her, his movements silent as ever. "That group from the Andromeda sector actually managed to track Manuel through the canopy yesterday." "Times change," Amanda smiled, watching a mixed team of human and alien operators practicing camouflage techniques with natural materials. The Concordat's starting to understand why Earth kept its wild spaces. These forests have more to teach than any artificial training ground. A distant rumble of thunder drew their attention skyward. Through gaps in the canopy, they could see Concordat ships arriving. But not for war this time. These were training vessels, bringing new students eager to learn the secrets of Earth's wilderness. "Think they'll ever match us?" Amanda asked, watching the ships descend. Ghost checked his rifle, worn smooth by years in the jungle, and smiled. "Maybe. But by then, we'll have learned even more from the forest. That's the beauty of it. Nature never stops teaching those willing to listen." The jungle seemed to whisper in agreement, its ancient wisdom now recognized, not just by Earth's defenders, but by the galaxy itself. What began as ridicule had ended in respect, proving that sometimes the most advanced civilizations are those that remember their roots. In the end, the Amazon had taught the stars themselves why Earth kept its teeth sharp and its wilderness wild.